Hey all, Adam Conway here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the OnePlus Nord 2, which just launched at OnePlus's online launch event that was held on the 22nd of July. A lot of people have been looking forward to the OnePlus Nord 2, especially because the OnePlus Nord was a bit of a hit last year, making up a huge sum of the company's sales in Europe when it launched. Now, I wasn't necessarily a massive advocate for the original Nord, so I was a bit of a skeptic coming into this, but I've been thoroughly impressed. This is a quick hands-on. I'm going to be doing a review for the XDA portal in the near future, and coming back here as well to talk more about my thoughts in depth, particularly after this has had a few software updates to iron out the experience. Let's get into it. So the OnePlus Nord is a budget-oriented smartphone primarily. Now I say budget, it's coming in at €400 thereabouts in Europe for the base model. So it's still a bit pricier than much of the other competition that we would class as a budget. But it gets the job done. It's a OnePlus phone, and we're going to talk about that in a bit because what people know as a OnePlus phone might actually be different than what this is. It has a MediaTek 1200 AI, which is a chipset that MediaTek and OnePlus worked on together to produce for this specific smartphone. It's basically equivalent to around a Qualcomm Snapdragon 870 in terms of performance, and from when I've been using it over the past 36 hours, it will have been by the time this video comes out, there have been no problems with that. I've been using all my normal apps on it, etc. to no detriment whatsoever. It all works perfectly, which I've been very happy with. There's also up to 12 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage, NFC, dual SIM with 5G support thanks to that MediaTek 1200, and a 4500 mAh battery with 65 watt warp charging. Overall, a pretty good package with specs, and for the price point, I'm a big fan of it. If you remember, my main sticking point with the original Nord was the pricing, and I think OnePlus so far anyway, if this continues to be good, has nailed the pricing. Now, so far, the OnePlus Nord 2 resembles a OnePlus 9, and this was something that we said with the OnePlus Nord last year. It nearly made the OnePlus 8 redundant, and I would nearly say the same thing again here. The OnePlus Nord 2 is in a very interesting position because it has flagship specs that it uses to their full potential, particularly with that 1080p 90Hz display being the only real downside of using this phone instead of a OnePlus 9. Because the OnePlus 9 still has 120Hz. You also get the company's Oxygen OS, which, as far as I can tell, this is actually the first ever Oxygen OS version that seems to incorporate Color OS underneath the hood. So in this case, what I'm talking about is, if you remember where I've particularly harped on about the likes of convenience tools being an option in the settings on Oppo devices, those settings are now on the OnePlus Nord 2. There are settings that say convenience tools, there are Oppo specific settings using the camera app. There's the settings cog from Oppo's camera app. So while different elements of the system have been themed to resemble Oxygen OS, it's actually Color OS from everything I can tell, and when I decompiled the camera app, it was a different one to the OnePlus camera and had references to O+, which is the company that encompasses Oppo and OnePlus. So from what I can tell, this is very much a Color OS phone with Oxygen OS themed on top of it, and you can't really tell. Currently using this as my primary daily driver, there are a couple of janky problems that I can only put down to being pre-production, and while typically I would not be a fan of giving reviewers pre-production software, I've talked about this before, I'm going to review what I'm given, and I don't want to review a phone with the expectation it will get better. You buy a phone for what comes out now. But I would say to keep in mind that for my final review, the software may change. There's already been a software update on this phone, and I've been told that there are more to come. Given that this is the result of a merger between OnePlus's Oxygen OS and Oppo's Color OS, it can be understood that there are going to be problems, some teething issues, particularly out of the box starting off, because what ends up happening is OnePlus is trying to merge their features, their theme, over Color OS. So for example, Color OS has a feature that if you press down with 3 fingers and then hold down, it lets you take a partial screenshot there and then. That feature hasn't been in Oxygen OS before, but it's in Oxygen OS now. But there are also features as well that aren't in ColorOS that started off in OxygenOS, such as RAM boost. So these are things that the team are likely trying to incorporate into ColorOS as fast as possible, so that OxygenOS on the OnePlus Nord 2 and in future devices, should future devices end up launching with this hybrid, which I don't see why they wouldn't, they need to sort them out quickly and get these problems figured out and these kinks ironed out so that it can be the OxygenOS everybody knows, and currently it is very close. It's very hard to tell the difference, and it was only because I specifically went looking for it, looking for settings such as convenience tools, looking for features that I know are in ColorOS, and then even decompiling apps to be sure. That was the only way I was able to tell for certain that this is a combination, because it looks the same as OxygenOS with a couple of extra tweaks and changes, and that could just have been because of a version change, because this is OxygenOS 11.3. With the software out of the way, I can talk about more of the specifications. However, keep in mind these are all first impressions. This is a very short time period I've had this phone, so I'm not going to make any actual judgments on what is being offered here. I've used a camera because the camera is the OnePlus 9 primary sensor, the IMX766 with OIS, and it's pretty good from what I can tell. It seems to be as good as on the OnePlus 9, but the other cameras seem to be kind of meh. There's an ultra wide and a monochrome sensor that I haven't gotten to play around with too much, so I'll reserve from making a proper judgment from them, but I'm impressed by the primary camera so far. The battery life as well has been very good with that MediaTek 1200AI. It's quite efficient, and the battery has been getting me through the day. I'm going to put up some screen on time statistics because that's basically all I can share right now. I also did a couple of benchmarks, and again, very impressive. Nothing really awry or to be worried about. When I did a Geekbench 5 score, for example, that was getting a score akin to a Samsung Galaxy S21 thereabouts, just a small bit lower, the Snapdragon edition. So I don't think anybody will really have a problem with this phone, and that's why for €400, I'm a big fan. I actually think that it's a much better value proposition than the original Nord was. Don't go out buying it based on that, because it could become a thing that in a few weeks' time I realize that I don't like the phone, or something comes up, or maybe there's a software update. But currently, the phone's good, and I'm really, really liking it. I've earned a bit of a reputation because people seem to think I'm a OnePlus hater or something, when that's not the case. It's just being in Europe, there are lots of other value-based options from Xiaomi and Poco and Realme that it's hard for me to look at a phone that offers decent specs but then look at a phone that's €100, €200 less and offers the same, if not better. The OnePlus Nord 2 is in a unique category of its own because there aren't many phones now that I could actually think that are cheaper that offer on par or better specs. There have been one or two issues that I've had. Primarily, I actually got a couple of phone calls earlier that didn't come through. I got a text from my carrier because when I miss a phone call, my carrier texts me telling me I missed a phone call. And I missed 2 phone calls that didn't actually ring. I also haven't been getting Slack notifications. I've been getting Discord notifications intermittently. These could again be teething issues with the software, and hopefully future updates will fix it, but given OxygenOS's reputation for notifications and such, I would be kind of worried. It's kind of worrying to think about because it could be the case that they're just reintroducing the same problems again, when I had hoped that this would nearly be a new start for OxygenOS. Overall though, the OnePlus Nord 2 seems to be a pretty good package. I'm impressed with it. I'm waiting out to see what happens, and if software updates fix a couple of problems, if they introduce new features, if the bugs and the little bit of like UI jank can be fixed, because there's small little things like switching apps, for example, can be kind of difficult. There's obviously the notification issues and things like that I'm just hoping improve, but I'm already very impressed with what I have here, particularly when this is the first result of that OxygenOS ColorOS merger. This has been Adam Conway with XCA TV. If you enjoyed, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of the Nord 2 down in the comments below. I'll be commenting, just, if you want to ask me a question about it that I haven't covered here, or if you want something for me to cover in the final review as well. My comment will be down there so that you can reply to it and just, ask me. So yeah, thanks for watching.